So we're going to start with brief introductions for the panelists. And then my name is Nico. This is Ixchel. We're going to be you guys' hosts for today. Thank you, Work-Based Learning, and Sean for giving us this opportunity. And we'll start with the panelists right now.
All right, if we could get started with names and job titles and something about yourself.
My name is Loveda England. Let me see. I am the CEO of House of Restoration Community Connections and One Community Network. You guys can look at me on Instagram, Beta J Inspire, and I mentor women and young adults. One thing about me is that I have 4 beautiful queens. Their ages are 30, 27, 19, and 17. I call them my 2 cents.
Hi, I'm Teresa Henry. I am the Senior Director of Quality and Scientific Operations at Sequoia Consulting. I've been with Sequoia about 8 years, and our focus is supporting companies in the life science industry as they move to that next phase of life, whatever that happens to be.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks for having me. I'm Erica Salcuni. I work at Sharp Healthcare as the Community Benefit Manager. So all the activities we do out in the community, basically, me and my team oversee and work with our colleagues on those. I'm originally from New York. I've lived in San Diego for lots of years now, and I'm just grateful to be here.
Good morning. My name is Viri Martino. Viri is short for Viridiana. You can call me V. I am currently working with Turner Construction Company. We are a general contractor that does commercial construction. My role currently is Design Liaison. That means we, as a general contractor, have design firms, architects working for us, so I oversee the work that they do. My current project is the San Diego Terminal 1. It's a $2.6 billion new development. If you've driven by the airport and hit all the traffic, I'm sorry, I apologize on behalf of the entire city of San Diego, but I promise it's gonna be a beautiful new facility. I have a 3-year-old son, and I also worked on the CBX project. Cross-Border Express is the bridge that connects to the Tijuana airport, and I was the first passenger to use it when it opened to the public, so I was a celebrity for like 10 minutes. Wow.
All right, thank you for introducing yourselves. So I want to talk about day-to-day responsibilities of what your job entails, and if not your job, your lives as well, because that's also very important to your career. So if we can get started.
Goodness. Day to day. So since I still have a 12th grader at home, it always starts with us. It starts with us. Before she gets dropped off at school, we pray before she gets out of my car. It's a really big part of my life. I raised my 3 older daughters on prayer as well, so it just continues. Then I go to my office, and either sometimes I have to go and talk to middle schoolers, or I'm doing a workshop with women or young ladies. We actually just completed a 13-week workshop. It's entitled Cover Me Right, and so we'll be having a fashion creative show this Saturday. Or we have the think tanks, or young ladies come to my office, young like 20-something or somewhere around there. They can come and do their resumes, or they can do job search. Primarily, I'm really a listening ear, and the reason why I mentor women is, for one, because I've been a woman all my life, and I know the mental, emotional turbulences and the mental discourses we have. And so I like to talk also about the positive side and give them tools, because we all have those things going on in our lives. It doesn't always have to necessarily be mental health. It could just be the fact that you haven't learned how to forgive somebody. It could be the fact that you can't let go of someone that hurt you in your childhood. It could be, many factors, and they lay it all towards mental health. But after having conversations with individuals, we work on getting to the root of what's going on, and then let them be able to decide on whether it's mental health or if it's just something that they need to let go of.
So my day-to-day life has changed quite a bit since the beginning of the pandemic. It used to be get up, drive into a client site, and work from a desk there. Nowadays, it's roll to my upstairs office and start on telecons. I am on video calls probably 8 hours a day. And those can be anything from one-on-ones with my team, making sure that they have what they need to have, helping to remove any hurdles that they might see in the success of their projects, working with clients, teaching them what it's going to take to do well in their new space, helping them write procedures and protocols, and learn new techniques and processes that maybe they haven't gotten to because they have been so focused on developing products. We tend to come in when the product is developed and they're wanting to go into a clinical trial or wanting to go into commercial space, and there are all sorts of new things. You've got great products, but they don't necessarily have a process that's going to work. So a lot of what I do is really teaching and helping to hear the clients and see where they want to go and show them how to get there. My days are typically 7 to 5 or 6, and they recently, I'm very excited, have started to involve a bit more business development and networking, going out into the community and actually meeting people in 3 dimensions, which is such a wonderful thing. So I'm really happy to be here and see all of you. Like, in person, I can touch you. This is unbelievable.
Thanks. Yeah, day to day. I mean, something like this could be part of my day. I think when I was sitting in your seats, I thought 9 to 5 was a pretty black and white thing. You go into an office, you punch some keys, you go home. That is not, although it is an office job that I have at Sharp as community benefit manager, it's really not that day to day. Some days we are working on reports. Other days we're working with doctors, nurses, well, not doctors as much, they're pretty busy, but a lot of the nursing leads and social workers and people that really deliver the healthcare at Sharp to patients. And we ask, what have you gone out and done this year in the community that didn't make Sharp a profit? What did you do just as a public citizen trying to serve this community? And so we'll hear all kinds of answers to that question. There are mentorship programs, much like Ms. England. I just met her on the way in, but I do believe that, you know, exploring what could be at the root of, you know, a mental health challenge is the kind of program that Sharp might offer to some folks. There's not a one-size-fits-all, but I would say at my desk, we look at those opportunities and we try to bring them to the community like this. So yes, some of it's a little bit office job, dry, writing reports, going to meetings, but a lot of the time there's an opportunity to really get to know what makes your other colleagues tick too, and then you can say, hey, well, we have to do X, Y, and Z to keep this job. But what about this exciting project we could work on together because you're passionate about this, you're passionate about this. Maybe we could do it in Linda Vista. That's a wonderful community. And so, yeah, really a lot of healthcare is outside of the doctor and nurse's office because it's really what's inside of us that drives us every day. And so we really like to look at that when we build our programs.
All right, well, construction is a very active industry. One of the amazing things that I love about being part of the construction industry is that you actually see your project come alive. It's something tangible. You see the construction physically going up from the ground up. So we, though there was a pandemic, we took a lot of precautions. Construction never really stopped. So we've continued going in, the workers, putting all together, you know, all the measures to keep everybody safe. But we have trailer complexes which the team that's planning the work, we're all together in the same place with our design team, with our client, and with our trade partners, the ones that are actually doing the work, and we manage it. So my day-to-day is coming into my trailer, and it's 44,000 square feet. It is very, very large. It's one of the largest buildings that I've ever worked on for construction because, again, my project is so large. We have about 200 people in there currently. So I come in and I go to a lot of meetings for planning, for strategizing, and I'm usually surrounded by men, and men that could be my dad or my granddad. And it's, for me, that's always been really, really fun or interesting because I get to work with them. Sometimes I tell them what to do and they look at me and they're like, really, you're telling me? And I'm like, yes, sir, you are gonna do this. You know, so it's really interactive. It's always interesting to learn from them and to also bring to them sometimes like a more younger perspective to how work is, because construction is still a very old school industry. So we're having new generations and trying to work through that generational gap in which we're having a lot of the older folks retire, and these are the master builders, and we have a lot of younger generations coming in with all these innovative ideas. So I'm in the middle of those two generations, and I like to be part of, you know, kind of the bridge that brings them together. So that's what we do. We talk to the trades, we talk to the design team and we're solving problems all day, every day. In construction, no day is the same, and that's what I love about it.
Thank you. All right, so we talked about getting to the XYZ of it all, building up to the projects, and I know we were discussing green lighting clinics, fashion shows. It's amazing how you guys get to these points, but I want to discuss, thank you for the day-to-day, day-to-day, what's the project that highlights your career? What have you thought back on during those XYZ days saying, I'll get to another project like that again?
Okay, so I think I'm kind of the, one of these things that don't fit, like, so I am an entrepreneur. So I am my own boss, though I do have a job. I work for a substance use disorder, one of the biggest substance use disorder facilities here in San Diego. I program manage individuals that are working on getting their children back from CWS. That's what I do outside of House of Restoration, which is my own organization. And so it's me. I want to work on being a better me. I was a teenage mom, had my first daughter at 16, raised by a drug addict mom, became a functional alcoholic myself. And to this day, I know I have 3 books written, and I mentor women and young ladies. And getting back to the projects always remind me of, there's always internal work that I have to do within myself. And if I don't wake up and look at my own self in the mirror and say, Veda, did you wake up on the right side of the bed today? And put my own self in check, then it does not allow me to go out and help other women that have the struggles or have the issues with forgiving maybe their mom. My mom was a single mom. She has her own story. And it took a lot for me to forgive her. It did. It took a lot for me to forgive her. And realizing her background. So sometimes, you know, old school is like, what goes on in this house, stay in this house. We don't talk about none of that, right? And so that's how my mom grew up. Yet being in the substance use disorder field and going through my own experiences, I learned that keeping secrets can make you sick. It makes you have these emotional turbulences. It makes you have the difficulties. It makes you have the anxiety. It makes you have the depression. More than what we already are going to experience it. But as I begin to let my mom go and really focus on my purpose and why and who I am, then it causes me to always go back to the projects.
So for me as a scientist, I look at, ooh, what was the fun, exciting project that I really got to dig my teeth into? What was the scientific challenge where I got to spend time to tease out what the actual root cause was? And the scientist in me is always drawn to the challenging project. From a personality perspective, I also really need the team environment, and I need that cross-functional everything. So I look back on my career, and I did some work with Optimal Pharmaceuticals. We made a small molecule drug for treatment of a digestive disease. And we ultimately were sold, became a different company, and all of us moved on to something else. But what I miss is the camaraderie that we had going through that. Each one of us had a specific purpose and a thing that we were better at than anybody else in the world, but we got to work together to figure out how to keep product on the market, solve whatever issues happened to come up that day, and really ultimately impact patient and know that we were making the world a better place, even if it's just for that tiny little community. And so for me, those are the projects that I strive for, that I'm really drawn to, but it's not always just chemistry. It's not always pharmaceuticals. I've worked in biologics and device and food and dietary supplements. And all of them have that one thread of, why does this work? How do I make it work better? And how do I work with this team to get it to that next phase? So that's really what kind of drives me towards the next project and the next goal in life.
Yeah, this one's hard because a specific project came to mind. It wasn't at Sharp. But in general, I think, any of the work that I've done that looks at how we could address top community needs, and I mean, it shouldn't be a surprise to you all here to know that over and over and over, when we do this research on what are the top health needs here in San Diego County, in this part of the county and that part of the county, we know they're different depending on what kind of communities live there, but, projects that really try to restore our sense of self when it comes to what we eat, how we feel. There are a lot of social factors, I think, so the projects that have helped, like a horticultural therapy garden at East Mesa Juvenile Detention Facility. Those kids, if you are unfortunate enough to end up in a youth offender unit, you probably didn't have a lot of opportunity. And so that's not very fair. And so just seeing people make their own salad from a garden, I mean, it sounds touchy-feely, but I think those little projects that help start to change a system entirely are how we're going to make a healthier population. So again, it's, for me, projects that are not just about, I'm not a doctor or a nurse, I'm not a clinical person at all. But again, there's so much that we know we could do to improve our whole country's mental health, our whole country's nutritional state, the shape and size of communities. So I think all the projects that I've worked on that have kind of helped lift people up a little bit to know that, you could feel better, but also kind of tackling the harder, big picture ideas that there are some policies and structures that make it a little harder for people to make those choices. But seeing, when people feel like, hey, I didn't know I could do that, I think those have been the best projects.
That's awesome. I love hearing how, when you hear about what's the best project that has inspired you the most, is not the one that made you the most money, or, it's like, it all comes down to people. And for us in construction, it's the same thing. When you have a manager, you're working and you have a manager that cares for you as a human, that is ensuring that you're growing and that you're learning and that they're making an impact, like that's the kind of projects that I really enjoy. So either when you go into, whatever job career may be, like that's the kind of people that you want to search for as a mentor, as a manager, and also when you become a manager, that's, just remember when you're working on a project, it's your team, your people, more beyond than the project. The people make the project, not the project makes the people. And that's what I've really learned in the project that I've enjoyed the most. That cross-border express bridge, for example, we were a very small team, very lean, we call it, and yet we we had a great time because we had a manager that ensured that we were there and having fun at the same time as we were building this very stressful cross-border bridge. We were coordinating with contractors from across the border. I'm originally from Tijuana, so for me this was very special too, because it was, I think, late 2016, there was a lot of going on with elections and divisiveness in the country, and at the same time, what we were doing there was something that was, you know, not out of the ordinary. We're literally building a bridge across the border that didn't have barriers in there. So it was amazing to come together and build that bridge, not only physically, but culturally as well. And again, having that team that really, you know, it was like your family. That's what you strive to have. So just keep looking for that. If you don't have that, just keep going until you feel like you have where you belong and the support that you need.
Beautifully said. Yeah, as students, we look at these careers on paper, so all we can see is like income, what you're gonna do day to day. And it's so great to know that all you panelists are working to make the community better. Each project builds up to the community, and that's just, it's amazing. It's good to know. It's good to know that what we're doing here in the long run is gonna help all San Diego. So I'll pass it on to Nico.
Yeah, I'm just gonna go off what she said. I love that you guys are doing everything you can for the community. I also enjoy the fact that all these answers aren't similar, you know? I like that they're all diverse in their own way. I'm sure the students out here don't have the same goals for themselves as they do for their friend, you know? So the fact that we have diversity here is very well. So I'd like to add on to your actual career path, but I'd like to go before you actually became your profession. I'd like to go why you chose that route and what motivated you the most.
Why I chose to become an entrepreneur is because sometimes I just don't like listening to people. I like doing my own thing. I like being on my own time schedule. I like, you know, you know, like I said, I have 4 girls, and I want them to be the best them that they can be. And sometimes, for me, I can't always be the best me I can be under someone else's thumb. You know, if I work for a company, I have to play by their rules, their policies. And though being your own boss, you still have, you know, don't think I don't have people to report to, because I still got IRS and, you know, other people watching me. And my children, and I have 3 grandbabies now as well. But what pointed me in that path is just being outside the box of my own family. You know, coming from a very dysfunctional background and everything, and just wanting something more for my daughters to obtain. Like, I really want to be able to leave a legacy. You know, whether my daughters choose to go that route or not, you know, sometimes when we're young, we don't know the best path for us, you know. It's just like in the first book I wrote, I put my 2 older daughters, I put a poem of their speech, and so they're actually proclaimed authors. But they may not ever want to go that path, but if they do, they have something to fall back on and say, hey, you know, I had something published way back then, and so I want them to obtain for something better.
So for me, I was one of those nerd kids. I have to just own it. I was the one that would go out in the yard and find a leaf with a little bump on it and want to know what was inside of it and how it got there and what it was going to become. So I knew as a little bitty guy that I was going to be a scientist. There was never a question there. What I didn't know was what I was going to do with my career long term. And I remember having conversations in high school with my parents, and they're like, well, what do you want to do? What do you want to major in? And I was like, I want to be a dolphin trainer at SeaWorld. This is exactly what I wanted to be. And they're like, okay, that's a reasonable thing. How many of those jobs do you think there are every year? It's like, 1 or 2. And what degree do you think you're going to need to get to do that? And I was like, let's do marine biology. Okay, so you're going to be one of several thousand students graduating with a degree in marine biology, and you want to be a trainer at SeaWorld. How likely is that? Yeah, maybe not. Okay, so I still want to be a scientist. Where are there jobs? Where are there opportunities for me to continue to dig in, find out what it is, why it's there, and how it works? And I was like, okay, let's do chemistry. That one, they say there's a lot of jobs there, and it should be challenging enough. I also am a very bizarre individual in that I don't ever go for the easy path. If it's easy, somebody else will do it. So I went chemistry, and as I was going through my undergrad, I worked at the USDA and realized that there was no opportunity for me to be my boss's role without an advanced degree. So I went straight into a PhD program. Never once regretted that, but coming out of that, I had to face the hard truth that you're expected to be an expert in one very tiny thing, and that is not what I want to be long term. I want to know everything, and I want to play in a bunch of different fields. So it's taken me a while as I've gone through my career to get to the point where I have now the breadth of experience to be the scientist that I want to be, and to now be able to play in all of those different sandboxes. And as a consultant, it's kind of fun because I get to play for like 6 months, a year, and then I go on and try something else and take what I already learned from there into the next role.
Thank you. Yeah, so I definitely didn't know that I wanted to go into healthcare early. I would say the things that shaped my experience, you know, growing up, I was always more of a creative person. You know, we had a lot of mental health challenges in our family, and those weren't always talked about, right? That wasn't the culture in my family. And so just kind of trying to figure out who I was with that situation, and a bit of a dysfunctional childhood. It just wasn't an overnight decision. I wanted to be a writer. I had a similar conversation, you know, with my mom about, well, what do you want to write? Poetry, duh. You know, I mean, that's great. It's like music. It's okay. Well, can't you do that as a hobby? And I still to this day, I don't know how I feel about that answer. Can you do this as a hobby? But I do write in my job. And so what I found from then to now is that you can take skills that make you feel good and make you shine, and you can bring them into a job that, you know, you might have otherwise thought didn't look like you on paper when you saw the advertisement. So I think that was important, just being a creative being, you know, no offense, but it's steered me away from the STEM fields, and I really do wish that I had a mentor, you know, to say, hey, women can be scientists, you know, women can be interested in math, you know, and I just wasn't good at that stuff, so I just kind of went with that and said, oh, I'm not good at that stuff, so I'll focus on what I can do in a performative atmosphere. I'll focus on writing, I'll focus on, you know, connecting with people. I thought I wanted to be a therapist. Did all the things you need to do, like, you know, job shadowed people, went through therapy, right, as a mental health patient, and realized then, like, day to day, that's not for me. So it really was just a journey, and at the end of the day, the common thread that stayed, even from when I was little, is I just want to help people. So how do I do that? You know, I need to get paid also, but how do I help people and get paid? So it brought me to Sharp.
That's awesome. I love that. So I didn't really know what I wanted to be when I was, you know, younger, but my dad had a degree in architectural engineering. He did this in Mexico City in the 70s. So he was always referred as like el ingeniero, like the engineer. and it was like such a big term, and he would always do a lot of sketches. You know, his handwriting was like an architect. Everything that he would do, like doodles, always spoke to me like architecture. So I'm like, I'm gonna be an architect. I wanna be like my dad. But I had 0 ounces of creativity. Like, I was I was bad at it, but I was really good at math. I was like straight A student, always did great in math and science, so I had an inclination towards that. And when I was in high school, I was talking to my math teacher. He had a huge impact with me, and he told me, he's like, have you ever considered civil engineering? And I'm like, what is that? Like, am I supposed to be civilized? Like, what does that even mean? Like, I'm pretty civil, like, I don't know. So, but he explained to me, you know, it's civilization. Engineering means solving problems. So you're solving problems for civilization. And I'm like, explain it a little further, you know, because I was like, you know, my mind was blown. That he's like, just look around you. Everything that's around you, your city, your town, your roads, where there's a bridge versus a highway, and how you ramp up and how you build on hills, everything, you know, bridges and dams, everything that has to do with infrastructure for a city, for a town, for a civilization, like that's what civil engineers do. And I was blown away. I'm like, that's what I want to be. I wanted to be an urban planner. And I said, I grew up in Tijuana. If any of you, if you have experience of going down there, you know how crazy it can be. You know, the planning isn't that great. And so growing up seeing that and then coming across the border to the US, like you see physically the difference in how proper planning and roads and cities and the growth that you think ahead. So that's what I said, I want to be part of that, of the urban planning of communities. So I went and studied civil engineering, and I said I want to build a bridge one day, which I eventually got to do at the CDX, which was amazing, full circle. So I did that. I studied civil engineering, and I started interning with Caltrans, the California Department of Transportation. So I was interning in projects to actually what's happening currently in North County, expansion for carpool lanes, like in Oceanside area. That was my project like 16 years ago, and they're barely building it because it took that long. So it was a little too slow for me, and eventually I interned for Turner Construction, which is commercial construction, and that's where I felt like this is the right pace for me. So that's how it was. But I mean, I do remember having the conversation with my dad, who had a degree in what I wanted to do, and he's like, honey, do you want to do something more womanly? You know, he's my Mexican dad with a mustache and everything, and I'm like, Dad, like I want to do this. And you know, my grandpa was a civil engineer, his dad, so I kind of came to it on my own terms. So, but to him, my dad would always tell me that I had it in my blood, you know, that it was my blood calling me, because he said that I reminded him of my grandpa. I didn't, you know, he passed away when I was really young, so I didn't, you know, only grew up seeing pictures of him in construction sites. So this is, you know, my lifeblood is what brought me to this career that I love so much.
That's amazing. I see a bit of myself in every answer. So it's like I was just talking like, oh, I relate to that too. No, wait, that too. No, wait, that too. Oh my gosh. But when it comes to mentorships, because I heard a lot of, I was told this and that, I was asked, I know I myself, I'm first generation, I'm navigating the school system as it goes each semester. Can I get a hand of first generation students? Yeah. Yeah. It's, I was the one asking myself, can this be a hobby? Can I get paid a little more for that? I don't know. So I don't really have the parent that would ask me, oh, what degree do you need for that? I ask myself. So as a student, not even as a student, let's say in your 20s, maybe even in your teens, what do you wish you had to mentor you? I know that building yourself, that's what I'm going through right now, building up yourself, building purpose. So if it has to do with purpose, that'd be great because I need to know. But if anybody would tell you anything, a teacher, a guide, let us know.
If I was in my 20s still, would I?
Anything, whatever you needed help with in your youth.
It's kind of a difficult question for me because again, I had my first child at 16, and I had my second child at 19. So. Like, I really didn't grow up until my children got old enough to bring some of the things to my attention because I went into survival mode. without knowing it. So ever since I was 16, maybe 15-ish, if not a little younger, I've been in survival mode. So because I grew up in the environment that I grew up in, maybe if, goodness, maybe if, I don't know, maybe I need to be in an inpatient, like, Oak Grove type facility for a minute, you know, because I was already on the path of resistance, you know, with so much of the things that were hitting me already in my younger years, to where my ears were already cut off. You know, being in survival mode, you don't listen to a lot of people. In survival mode, you just act. So I did a lot of acting. So at that point, really, in my 20s, what I needed was probably to be somewhere where I could just be sat down and someone just poured good things into me. Just let me know how valuable I was. Let me know, you know, I don't have to do a lot of the things that I was doing at that age. So yeah, just having a good person, and actually not just doing it, but also asking me, what is it that I thought I was missing? Because oftentimes people always want to tell you what to do, but they're not really asking you, what is it that you think that you're missing? Or what is it that you think that you want? Or what is it, you know? So someone hearing me and then reciprocating, you know, really positive affirmations and just sound advice.
It's like you described yourself and what you're doing now.
So, for me, in my 20s, I was still a bit idealistic. I still had this theory that I could change the world, like the world, not a portion of it, but the entire thing. And I think what I really needed to hear was those aspirations are valuable. Hold on to them, but know that your path is not going to be straight. You're not going to just move from A to B and then end up where you think you want to go. And it took me years of trying and failing and not being in the right situation to get to a place where I'm like, okay, this is it. This is what I want to be when I grow up. But I really, especially in my early 20s, was like, okay, I'm going to get this degree. I'm going to go get a job, and I'm going to be there for 20 years. And that's how life is going to work. That's not how life works. And I had the parents that were sitting there playing devil's advocate. Well, what happens if? But I didn't clearly hear that, you know, it's okay for it to not be straight. It's okay for it to be this corkscrew and to lead you where you need to be.
Thanks. Yeah, in my teens and 20s, I guess I wish I had just had a little bit more of a desire to find role models. I love my parents, but in the career space, you know, that wasn't going to be realistic. You know, my mom did the best she could, and I had a lot of opportunities in school. So I just think in my teens and 20s, if I could have found that mentor that was a little less biased than mom and dad, that might have helped me a lot, because I was a wild child, and even though I got good grades, I kind of had an ego about it, like, whatever, I can do what I want, I can go out and party, and I can still get these grades, and you know, I didn't really have a vision, and I kind of wish that someone worked with me on that.
I'm gonna go the opposite way. I was always so focused in school and like my good grades, I can't go out with my friends, that I wish somebody was telling me like, it's okay to have fun. You know, don't be irresponsible, but like you worked hard for all of your grades. You worked hard to go to this math competition, or, you know, to be part of all of these, you know, constantly awards and go here and study there, that I feel like I missed out on a lot of just fun activities, because I was like, no, I can't stay up late. I have to, study, or I want to be tired tomorrow to go to school. I want to be bright-eyed, So that's what I feel like, I wish somebody would have told me, like, it's okay to just still be a kid, a teenager, somebody near, a young person, because these are your formation years. So, I mean, I'm fortunate enough that I had those role models. Like, my mom was always very involved. My daddy was very pragmatic. Like I said, proceed with caution is what he would tell me. But I had mentors, like my math teachers, and then at my community college, I went to Southwestern Community College, and is it working? There we go. Okay, so my counselor there was the one that, just walked me through the process. And it keeps going on and on, but I'll keep talking. Hopefully you can hear me. And then once I transferred, I went to USC in Los Angeles, and I also had counselors there that would help me just navigate through the process. Coming from the Tijuana, growing up, finishing high school there, and then coming to the US to start community college and eventually transfer, so it was a big change for me. So I didn't really know what I was doing, how the US educational system was working, so I had those people, the resources that I just wanted, like I said, help me. But I always was just so focused on school, which I probably would do it again, but maybe with a little more fun.
Fight on.
Fight on, yes sir.
Thank you guys so much. So, like, I relate to everything you guys said. Like, my mom is a teen mom. She had my brother when she was 18, she had me when she was 20. And, my parents played the devil advocate as well. They would say, what if you don't get this good grade? What if because you didn't study for this test, you won't do good on it? And then, like, seeing that there's someone in this panel that is Hispanic is just also brings joy to me as well. And because I'm in the Puente program, which is a Hispanic-based program here at Mesa, there's a lot of Hispanic people in the audience today. But also just growing up in an Hispanic household is a lot different than any other. And all households have their own features. But back to your actual career, what was the biggest risk that you guys ever taken? Just like, if I do this, it'll have a big benefit, but if I miss, like, things can go wrong.
Also, what was the risk getting there as well? Because you didn't have to be in your career to take that risk. It could have been to get there.
So one of the biggest risks is really to finding the route that I had to take as an entrepreneur, because earlier in my years I really did not have a mentor. Again, I'm just going my own way, right? And so the biggest risk really was, am I going to make it? It's stepping out. That's always been like the biggest thing, like stepping out, what we say, stepping out on faith, right? Don't know really what I'm going to be landing on. I just know that my purpose was to do what it is that I do today. And now that my 30-year-old and my 27-year-old, they've shared with me, like, Mom, you didn't have enough time for us, I did not know at that time that was going to be a risk for me, because I think that I'm there, I'm doing the best that I can for my children. They're clothed, they're fed, we're grooving, we got a roof over our head, yada, yada. Though there are times when I have experienced homelessness, what my children said brought more attention to the fact that a lot of single moms probably go through that we're putting our best foot forward and our children really don't see it. And so again, my biggest risk was, if I go this path, am I going to continue to land on something, or am I going to lose whatever it was that I didn't even already have, and so, yeah.
So my biggest risk came a little bit after grad school. I had finished my degree and graduated just after September 11th, 2001, which was a really terrible time to try and find a job. So I took a job at Kraft Foods, Oscar Mayer, and I was like, I can make this work. 2 years, I'm like, you know, I didn't spend this much time in school to build a better hot dog. This is not for me. And I had a friend in California who was in the Navy, and he called me up and said, you know, I'm getting ready to go out to sea. I'm going to be gone like 6-9 months, something like that. If you want my apartment, you can have it. And I was like, all right. So, sure, let's make this happen. Quit my job, moved across the country, and hoped that I could find something when I got here. I always wanted to work in the biotech field. I wanted to make drugs. That was the whole purpose of my degree. And yes, I know exactly what that sounds like. But that was the whole goal. That was what I was researching and trying to figure out how to do. And I was like, San Diego's a good place for that. So I literally quit my job, packed up, moved across the country, and just hoped that there was going to be something for me here. It took a month and a half to get my first temporary position in the industry, but having that temp role, having that line on the resume, made all of the rest of it possible. And you know, when you have no money, you're living in someone else's home, and they're due back any day, you start to really question whether that was a good risk or not. And so then you take the opportunities that come. They don't have to be perfect, but they need to be what you need right then.
Thank you. I like that, to take the opportunities that come and use them as a stepping stone and not really the final. Like, this isn't your life sentence if you don't want it to be, right? You can move forward with the information you learn from, you know, that first stepping stone. But I would say probably the biggest risk I took was moving out here without a job. I started working right out of college. You know, I majored in psychology. There's really nothing you can do with that in psychology right out of undergrad necessarily. Not if you're a person that wants to go right into being a therapist, which is what I thought at the time. So, you know, that wasn't the opportunity on the table at the time that I made this move. But what was an opportunity was an uncle that lived out here who had a spare room. And I just said, yeah, I'm going to do it. So I think the thing that sort of propelled me into the public health space, if you will, was just getting here and knowing that I didn't really have, you know, a leg to stand on. I didn't know anybody. I couldn't reach out and say, hey, can you get me a job at your dad's company or whatever. There was nobody I knew. So it was just like reaching out to organizations that worked on the food system and saying, hey, do you guys have a volunteer opportunity for a person that knows how to write things for websites? And it eventually turned into my first job. But I would say that the risk was just saying, you know what, California has this progressive sort of, you know, like I could do that kind of work that I want to do out there and change an environment. And it just didn't feel as possible where I was sitting in the Northeast. So I took a chance, took a spare room, ended a relationship. You know, lots of things happened to make that sacrifice. But yeah, I mean, I think even though that was more of a personal risk, it was ultimately something that was tied with a career risk.
I love this story. Everybody had a spare room somewhere. Because I also did too. But to me, it was I like to think about it as an opportunity versus my risk. Okay, I don't know, is it tilted? It's like the way I tilted, I don't know. It's me, right? Sorry, guys. So, but you know, when I was growing in Tijuana, I came into Chula Vista. Like, I stayed with an aunt, and she had a spare room, and I started going to Southwestern College. But I don't see that was a big risk. Like, that was my opportunity, which is what gave me that stepping stone to to everything that followed. But most recently, I do have a story of taking a risk that is what led me to my current position as a design liaison, design manager, essentially at the terminal project, which is a major project, one of the biggest that has been built here in San Diego. Is I have been having positions with Turner in the pre-construction department, so as an estimator. Like, I'm part of the team that figures out how much a construction project is going to cost, and we pursue the projects and we try to win those projects because we compete against other construction companies. And that's where I kind of have found my niche in construction, like this pre-construction component. And I love it. That's actually what my dad ended up doing. He was an estimator, so I kind of, weirdly enough, followed his steps. But I had been in this department for a while and working 1 year full-time on the pursuit of this terminal project. And I built the budget for this, over $2 billion, figuring out what everything was going to cost and trying to win the job. And then we eventually did. I mean, we were a very large team putting it together, but I was a key team member in winning that job. And I have my title and my position ready to go, and we're kicking the project off, say next Monday. And we had just gotten a brand new general manager in our San Diego office for Turner. She asked me out to lunch, and I'm like, oh, she wants to get to know me.
And when we went out to lunch, she said,
she offered me the position of the manager for the estimating department. Like, I had just been a member of the department, but she's like, hey, I want you to take over. And I'm like, are you crazy? I'm starting my new role with the project for the terminal on Monday. And she's like, I know, but this position is going to give you, it's a promotion, a big promotion. It's a pay bump. You're gonna have access to me. You're gonna have all this influence on our business unit. And my heart was telling me no. I think anybody would have jumped to the opportunity to just grow. It would have been a big step for me, being somebody younger, to take over and manage people that, again, were older than me and major projects. But my heart and my gut was saying, I don't want to do that. I've been working so hard on this other project, and that's what I want to be. That's where what I felt my team was. And she's like, are you sure? Are you really saying no to this? Like, anybody else, everybody was looking at me weird, like, are you crazy? Like, why are you saying no to this career opportunity? But and I'm not necessarily saying that you shouldn't take opportunities, but for me, this is what I've been working towards. This is the role that I have been dreaming of. And I was also thinking, I have a 3-year-old son. I want to be present. Taking a bigger role means a lot more responsibility. Perhaps being more time away from my family, and for me, that became a priority. So, a few years back, I read a book. It's called Lean In from Sheryl Sandberg, and it had a huge impact because this is before I was even becoming a mom. And it says, don't let your pregnancy or becoming a mom or becoming a parent stop you from growing. If you keep going, take the jobs, take the opportunities. Yet, I went with my gut in this case, and it's working out great because I have a huge influence in my current project, and it's so big, and it's something where I feel like I'm really adding value, and I know that the opportunity to come back into this department can still be there when I finish this project in 5 years. So it's been working out great for me so far. So, just listening, I think, to your gut and what your heart tells you. Sometimes you don't have to climb the ladder so fast. That's the biggest lesson here. Well said.
Thank you guys so much. Yeah, exactly. It does not have to be right away. It doesn't have to be fast. See, me personally, just because of the standard that's set, I want to get out of community college as fast as I can. But it doesn't work for everyone as well. What if you don't get the grade right? It'll affect your GPA, it'll affect your actual admission to get into the college that you want. So just saying that to students really sparked something in me, saying it doesn't have to be right away. Take your time, make sure it's all right. So I want to get back to the students. If anyone has a question for the panelists, it could be a personal question, it could be something about the career path.
Not too personal.
Just if anyone has a question, does anyone?
There's one.
Oh, sorry, what was your name again?
Me? V.
V.
Just V's fine.
That's good. So I was wondering, I've read into like your profession. It sounds very similar to architecture.
Yes.
And that's what I was like considering. That's what I'm currently considering into a drawing course. I was wondering, like, for a person in your career, like, what are like some of the I see more of the business or social skills that you expect of people that work in your career?
Yeah, so he's asking like what kind of business skills or like, you know, even personal skills that are in your career path.
Yeah, but you're interested in architecture more than engineering? I work with a lot of architects, so either way.
Yeah.
Yes.
So in order for a contractor, a construction company to build a project, we need plans and specifications, drawings that you're gonna build towards. And those are put together by architects and engineers, plumbing engineers, mechanical engineers, structural engineers. So all of these experts come together, we take the plans, and then we build them. So from an architecture perspective, one of the things I've learned currently, because my type of project is called design build, and it means that, you know, kind of construction 101. Typically a client has money, they say, I want to build this project, and then they go hire an architect, and the architect gets the team that designs this, and then they give the plans to construction companies. We compete, and whoever has the best price and the best team wins, and then we build it. And that's called design, bid, build. And then design build is, the client has the money, they want the project, they hire me as a contractor, and then I hire the architect, and then I help the architect design this building to make sure that they're designing it to the budget, and then we build it. So in this type of contract delivery that I'm doing, like, I interact with architects all the time to make sure that what they're building is going to be, you know, again, that we can do it, that it's buildable, that it meets the budget and the schedule. And what I've learned from working with architects is that there's almost like two kinds of architects. There's the creative ones that say, like, I want this building to have this amazing curve here and the moon and the stars, and they're just live in sketches, and you'll catch them with like a Sharpie or like on a whiteboard all the time sketching. And then there's the very technical person who says, here's the detail of how we're actually going to connect this door to this wall, and where are the acoustical panels going to be, and exactly the ceiling, like very technical. So you have a broad range of skills that you need, from the creative to the analytical, but being personable is what's the most important. To be able to connect with people and be able to convey your thoughts. Being a team member, a really good team member, is what's huge, and I think that goes with any career. But being able to communicate what you're thinking is something that's tangible. That clear communicator, team collaborator, and respect for others, respect for the builder, for the owner, for the trade. So those are the soft skills that are needed that make you stand up above the rest. Because you can have all the technical knowledge, but if you're a jerk, nobody's going to want to work with you.
That's right. That's true.
That's a general statement for any career.
That's true.
And there's a question in the back.
Hi, my friends and I were both thinking of pursuing a career in photography or film and media, and I was wondering if you guys had any colleagues who did that, or if you have any advice in getting a job in those industries, because it's a lot. I think it's pretty volatile to get a job and stick in that area. So I was wondering if you had any advice.
So I have a young lady that's a film writer that came through my organization, and I work with a lot of community members, and so we had given her some things to do. She reached out to a young lady in LA because she wanted live music behind her film, and once the young lady knew that she was working with a nonprofit organization, she came along and she helped compose her music to it. Now, one of the things that we are able to do is financially help young ladies and women that have certain projects that they're working on. And So I definitely would encourage you to look outside of your community. Like she found this young lady on Instagram, or she had been following her and different things of that nature. I know there's a lot of different platforms, social media platforms, maybe even LinkedIn. And you want to begin to, you know, search for individuals in that career or that community, and just say, hey, maybe I'm a, you know, tell them a little bit about yourself. And some people will come on. I think her having a third party, a whole nother business entity backing her, it was, even though the person's a nice person, after I met her, she's a really nice person. But sometimes if you don't have a third party, it's like one of us as women going to the mechanic shop, and the mechanics try to get over on us because we're women, because they think we don't know about cars. So if you go into that industry and they think you don't know, and you don't have like maybe a third party entity, you know, sometimes people will try to take advantage of you. So I would say definitely be leery of those things, or look for maybe a nonprofit organization that already works in that field that can help you pursue those, yeah.
And while I don't have direct experience in the field that you're talking about, I can suggest that you look into other fields where those same skill sets would apply. So think about maybe marketing and design and those sorts of things, where what you do and what you're interested in still is completely applicable, but maybe not the traditional mindset of how you would get there.
Yeah, I have one quick comment. My husband's cousin, she's now in LA working in like the movie industry, but she started, I think she was a student at San Diego State, and she had a job as a student, like a camera person at like local events, at like the venues in there, and that's where she got her experience. So when she moved to LA, like she had that to back it up. So while she was a student, she was gaining experience, and now she's like production assistant at movies that have Matt Damon and George Clooney. So it's, you know, so it's little steps, but she started really early, so that by the time she graduated, she was already standing out with some experience.
I'll just add, I have worked with a lot of those professionals. I'm not one myself, but build a portfolio. You know, meet your community. You're not gonna, you know, get where you want to be overnight if you go into like your local coffee shop and start selling your art, but build a portfolio, because even if it is working at an institution that's maybe like bigger than, you know, or, oh, I don't really, you know, have a passion for this industry, but they need someone that has a passion for what I do, then you have what you need to back it up to start your own hustle, really.
Just a quick comment. When you're looking at media, photography, and V mentioned that she worked as an intern at Caltrans. I had a friend who worked for Caltrans, and he was a photographer. Well, what he did is he had to go out and take pictures of sites and then Photoshop it, like the side of the hill where they're going to run a freeway, and then show them what it would look like once they cut into it. And so, for instance, for her, they're not just looking at, you know, prices and things. I'm sure you've got to have photographers go out to the sites, because you have to have an idea what the site looks like. So in photography, you can do that. I mean, every company has to do PR, has to do marketing. So it's a matter of not just saying photography as photography, but how do I use my photography and the other skills to get there? It's huge. That's one of the, probably the biggest careers you can do.
I just look at the pamphlets that you were given, you know, coming in. There's pictures of students. You go to any store, department store, a hospital, you'll see pictures of people, you know, and they use them for that material. So there's, yeah, the opportunities are endless, but it's not necessarily maybe art photography. You can still do that, but it's just finding a way that can still get you have like a living, because sometimes this can be a struggle if it's just based on artistic components, but something that's more functional. There's opportunities everywhere. You just don't know that it's happening behind the scenes. You just are used to seeing that everywhere, but there's like a whole team that put that together so that can be printed in the poster, advertising, you know, it's everywhere.
Yeah, exactly. You can just take your own skills to any pathway you want, you know. You can take your want to be a SeaWorld worker to be making medicine, you know? Like, it's that simple. It's not simple, but you can do it, like, whatever you set your actual mind to, I believe you can actually do it.
I think I've been looking at that backwards for a while. I'm choosing a career that will probably define me, but you define your own career, which is what I'm learning. There's so many branches to every career. Angie?
Okay, my question is for Vicky. What are the roles inside an architecture construction team? And I'm asking this because my major right now is arts, but I'm planning to get transferred into some real estate, interior architecture. So I'm still like seeing what are the roles inside of like construction. What can I do with that bachelor degree? And how can I do my portfolio to get into that company?
Right. So architecture firms have roles. It's actually they work very interesting, architecture firms, because your title can be like associate in senior associate, your junior associate, senior associate, and eventually go to principal. So you just go in levels, but your role may be multiple different things. But as an architect, again, you can try to be on the true design side. They call them studios. So I work with a company called Gensler. Gensler, they're like one of the largest architecture firms in the country, possibly the world. And they have a studio for aviation, and a studio for education, a studio for office buildings. So they have their own team in which they have folks that are doing like AutoCAD or Revit, the 3D model softwares, and they're doing a lot of the grind work, and they have teams that are doing interior design of like figuring out restrooms. What are the restrooms gonna look like? Is the mirror one big mirror? Is it little small mirrors? And looking at the trends of what's happening in architecture to bring it into the design. So there's multiple different, either technical or more design inspirational related roles. There's design management roles, like even as an architecture firm, you still have to have a project manager that looks at staffing. How are you staffing the team? How are you processing all the administrative side and the contracts with your sub-consultants that you're hiring under you? So there are multiple roles, but usually you kind of start, working through the bottom. When you're a new person, then they have you learn all of the software, and if you already know it, it's better, if you learned that at school. So that's what you can do, but you can go and branch out into multiple different like type of industries of projects that get designed by that firm. So you can do administrative, or you can do actual design, technical or inspirational. And for construction, then in construction, I'm in the very small slice, which is commercial construction. That's hospitals, offices, schools, airports, but there's residential construction, there's heavy civil, which is bridges and roadways and highways and dams. So there's different components of industries that you can go, but typically you have project managers, project engineers, executives, estimators, like what I was doing. My role as a design manager isn't very typical, because this is something that's starting to become not the norm, but something that's newer, like where the design team and the architects are under contract with us versus the client. So for me, I love it because it's a hybrid. Like I have my construction knowledge and my estimating knowledge, but I apply it and I work with designers. So I have to know design as well. So it's a very small, very few positions that are like that. But I love it because I think I can use the best of my skills in that position to work with designers and understand and respect what they do, but also have to nudge them like, you know what, you can't design the ceiling this way, it's too expensive, I have to change it to something less expensive. So that is something that I really love, because I didn't go for architecture, but I feel like I'm an honorary part of the team of the design, group, so it's really rewarding to be able to do that. So that's another role that you could do if you stay with construction. Like, I think you could still work in construction with an architecture background. I hope that answered?
Yeah, and relating with the portfolio, how do you recommend just with
Probably starting with school projects. Like if you're doing architecture, you know, anything that you're working on, save it, literally print it, or now it's digital. Somebody the other day actually at a conference, a student came in and showed me a QR code, and I'm like, what am I supposed to do with this? So I scanned it with my phone, and it was his resume, and I'm like, oh. I felt like, okay, I feel old now. So, but you could have it like that, where you can just meet somebody and be like, hey, scan my QR code, and then you open it, it's a PDF of all the work that you've done, your design, your sketches, anything that you do on your free time or in a school project or outside of school, put it all literally together into a PDF and have it handy to share it with somebody.
Thank you. So you guys all seem to have found that dream job that you guys wanted, and like really like fitting into that, just like love for that career that you guys each chose. But I know that there's probably some days maybe where it's slow or not really that fun, or maybe mental health isn't being really nice to you. And I was wondering, like, how do you push through those slow days and bad days, and just like how do you remind yourself like this is what I want to do, this is what like I strive to be. Just how do you push?
Okay, so there are times when I'll get out of the bed and not feel like it. I'll jump back in the bed and I'll close my eyes and I say, Beta, if you don't do it, nobody else is. So I like immediately like get up, you know, get up, jump in the shower, and then sometimes I go to my closet and get like the baddest outfit I have in there, put on my good heels, and walk out because Lord have mercy. There's a plenty of those days. There's a plenty of those days, and so we have to, well for me, I had to find balance, but I also know that sometimes my feelings can deceive me because being the person I am, it could be some residual from me hugging somebody. It could have been their sadness that transferred to me. It's not even mine, you know. Even just like what they were talking about transferable skills. Like there's things that can just transferable energies, transferable this, you know? So sometimes it's not even mine that I'm holding on to, but I tell you, girl, put on a good outfit and make you feel a lot better. Honestly, that's really how I sometimes get through it.
And for me, I go to bed at night and I say my prayers and I try every day to find the one thing that went well, that I'm thankful for, and to remind myself, at least at the end of the day, maybe my whole day didn't go the way that I wanted to, but this one thing did, and this is why I'm grateful. This is why I want to do the next day.
Yeah, there can be a lot of those days. So I would say for me, sometimes it's always mindfulness. You know, your thoughts and your feelings are not you. They're just experiences you're having in that moment, right? So you drive the car. And maybe some days it's about putting on that power outfit or just fixing yourself a cup of coffee. Maybe it's the beginning of wanting to shift a career, but usually, you know, on a day-to-day basis, I just remind myself, you know, I'm providing, and some days it's as simple as like, are you gonna get your Starbucks if you quit today?
That's what gets you through the day.
I went when I was a student, and I went to an event that was kind of like this, and there was a speaker, and this gentleman had such a big impact. I don't remember his name, I don't remember where he worked with, but one of the things he said is, in life, you're going to, you know, hit a lot of difficult situations. There are things that you can control, and there are things that you can't control. And if you can control it, and it's not going well, then you're gonna do your damn hardest to fix that and make it better. But if it's something that you can't control, you just have to go, oh well, and move on. Like literally this is what he said, and I'm like, is he serious? Like, is he really saying that? But I have kind of kept that as a mantra for myself, because I hit so many snags. I feel like we call them fire drills on our job site. Like anytime you think you come in and you show up to work, and I'm like, this is gonna be my plan for today. And then, you know, stuff just keeps changing. This is construction, and you have to drop what you're doing, fix it. Fire drill, like we're firefighters, literally. And sometimes you can really hold on to that and like be grumpy and hate it, like, oh my God, all of this is happening to me, and like really bring you down. But was it under your control? Like, it probably wasn't. Then you're gonna work on that. So if you are able to kind of let that slide and not affect you emotionally, then you can smile a lot more. Like, I was walking, my trailer is so big, like, and I'm in the corner, so I walk through everybody every day, and I'm always like smiling. And I was a kid's like, why are you always smiling? And I'm like, because it's a great day, you know? Like, we're alive, you know? So sometimes you forget about that, and it's contagious. So if you're having a bad day, you know what? Then just do your best and smile, and you'll make other people feel better, and everybody's gonna have a better time, you know? It's just, that's what works for me.
That's true. You just said something. I would just add, don't take it personally when somebody else is not being great, you know, because I think that was a lesson I had to learn early in my career. We all get frustrated with our coworkers' work styles sometimes. And yeah, just everything you said.
Thank you. I know we all needed that advice. Even at my day-to-day job as a host, I needed to know that. You can't make it personal sometimes. It'll really ruin the rest of the day. So we have time for another question. Oh.
She's been having her hand up for a while over here.
What kind of advice would you give to students who are stuck choosing between two career paths?
That's a good one.
Stuck between two career paths. Well, kind of what assisted me with making my decision is really, what do you go to bed to and wake up to? Like, do you go to bed to both of them and wake up to both of them? Or like, is one really tugging on you more than the other? Or you can do like a list and say the benefits and the downsides of both of them, and then, you know, make a choice from there. But I think even some things that they were talking about earlier is that our skills are transferable. So maybe you'll go into one now and then maybe be able to gather some information from that one that you go into, and is able to transfer into the next one.
I think you're absolutely right. Simply because we make one choice today doesn't mean that that's the choice that we have to live with for the rest of our life. We can make another choice tomorrow. And there is so much unseen overlap between different degrees and different industries that simply because you think you're choosing one path, you may actually be taking the first step on the other and just not even realize it. So, you know, my statement is always going to be follow your heart, but don't feel like you have to do it this way because you made that decision today.
Sometimes you can do them both in one. So I liked communications. I think I'll do that forever, even if I don't do healthcare forever.
From the bottom. I learned that.
But that's my short answer, really, is, you know, see if you can do a little bit of both.
I would say currently, reach out. You know, you're here, you're in a career class or career experience class. Find people that are doing those two career paths. Ask around. Like, I've actually been, like, my sister-in-law said, like, hey, I met the daughter of some friend and they're interested in civil engineering. Would you have a few minutes to talk to this person? So reach out to people that are currently doing those careers and hear about their experiences and learn about that and help them kind of guide you. And also, if you can intern, you're still a student, you still have a shot of trying one place one summer and then trying somewhere else the next summer. And then you make your choice, because you won't know until you're there. You know, you may think that something's amazing and then you're like, oh, this is not for me. So those are the things that you could be doing now as a student, you know, along with all of these, you knowing that in the future you still have other opportunities. But if you're trying to choose a major or trying to find that path, then try both and find people and ask questions. You'll be surprised that most will be willing to take you out for coffee or have a phone call or a video chat, whatever is easier.
Thank you. I think that concludes today. That was really insightful. Thanks for waiting my day.
And then also, work-based learning is doing a survey, so if you guys want to fill that out and then turn it into them at the end of the day, right over there outside. I also want to thank the panelists personally. I loved every single question. Thank you guys so much for coming. I think that's coming from work-based learning as well, and everyone understands. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.